Okay, welcome everyone to the HODLcast. Today we have very special guest, Ben Armstrong or Bitboy Crypto. Ben, thank you so much for making the time to meet with us today. You're the founder of Bitboy Crypto and the Hit Network Productions. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Sasha, I haven't talked to you in so long. It's
I
been
know
so
it's
long.
been a
Like
couple
4 years,
years.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You've
glad to
had
reconnect and do this. Yeah, exciting.
Me too. Thanks for making the time. You've become, a real famous
Yeah,
YouTuber since then. Your channel was pretty good 4 years ago, but it's had a
it was
really
okay.
a lot of new followers come
Yeah.
through the last couple cycles.
Yeah, it's been good for the growth. Yeah, that was right. We were doing interviews. I think back I had like 2,000 subscribers back then. So it's been very refreshing to get rewarded for all the work we put in here.
Absolutely. And you really broke this story of the, SBF and FTX
Mhm.
drama. Everyone's panicking now. The news articles, they're just coming in so fast.
Mhm.
There's so much drama, like sex, drugs,
Yeah.
maybe false flag operations. Like, can you kind of unpack it all for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So, how we got involved in all this, it's kind of a fluke. Some people would tell you it's part of a bigger plan. Maybe I don't know how me with the loudest voice in crypto, got wind of this stuff before anybody else. But basically, we have a bill that we're working on to create a mechanism to deliver good crypto regulation. When it's finally public, people are going to understand. Everybody's going to be on board with it. It's going to be really great. It's totally opposite of what SBF was wanting to do. But I didn't know what SBF was trying to do at the time. And so I was kind of undecided on is SBF a good guy or not? And that's how a lot of people in crypto were. He had this image like, I don't know, who is this guy? And so, of course, on my channel, I made fun of his haircut a lot. And so, maybe that's why, maybe he already didn't like me. But we went to them for funding for our bill because it's about $3.6 million to get a bill off the ground. That's, we don't even need a marketing budget for our bill. It would be $6 or $7 million, but obviously because of my channel, we don't have to have a marketing budget. And so we reached out to FTX. The SBF had just been on a committee talking in Washington. It was like, he would really be behind what we're doing. So reach out to him, reach out to Brett Harrison with FTX US, through a third party, a friend that I have who's a mutual contact. And Brett Harrison came back and said, you know what? Yeah, we would be interested in that. Send us the bill. So we sent him the bill and they sent it to, former CFTC Commissioner Commissioner Wetjen, and he was the head of policy at FTX. Well, he sits on this bill for 3 weeks and doesn't tell us anything. So we have heavy political backers on both sides. Our bill is bipartisan. So one of our backers got Wetjen's number and called him. He since deleted his Twitter. You can't even find him anymore, Wetjen. And so he reached out, or this person reached out to him and said, hey, what's going on with this bill? Like, are you guys going to fund it or what? And he said, not only are we not going to fund the bill, we never were. They basically were sabotaging us by trying to hold our bill back. We have our own regulation we're going to be pushing. And we would like for you to come join our team because we're having a problem with your political party backing our bill. And we think you'd be a big win for us. And well, what is the legislation? Well, they want to create a federal bit license. And so we started talking about this. Of course, bit license, the worst piece of crypto legislation in history in New York City or New York. Makes it difficult for any crypto company to operate there. You have to have a license. You have to have $100,000 in consulting fees just to approach getting the license, not even counting how much you have to have in the bank in liquidity to be able to back that up. The average person is not going to be able to get access to that. So this information is getting back to me, and I'm like, something isn't right here. They're pushing for a federal bit license. That's the total antithesis of what we want in crypto. And so I started calling him out for it. It took about 2 weeks for me to make a full video on what he was doing because I didn't want to out our politician immediately. I wanted to do it very slow. I still haven't said the person's name. People will know who the person is, before long. But I didn't want to out the person. So I did it very slow and methodically to make sure that I had enough time in between that conversation to really explain what he was trying to do. So we come out with this video talking about this federal bit license. And the next day, Brett Harrison from FTX gets fired or steps down, right? Well, we know he got fired at this point. And the next day he started following me on Twitter. So he was watching what I was saying. They were all watching what I was saying. And I said two things specifically. I said, SPF is coming after decentralization, decentralized finance, and he's coming after peer-to-peer transactions. So I've been putting out this message. Well, when SPF finally puts out his political manifesto on the website and then on Twitter as well, the very last tweet he says, Oh, and by the way, we definitely love decentralization. We definitely love peer-to-peer transactions, like just directly going out what I was saying about him. And when you go read what was actually on the website, not quite friendly to either one of those things. Then he goes on the debate with Eric Voorhees, and everybody knows that was the moment that everything really broke.
Yeah.
He starts using the word licensure. He starts talking about a license. He says the bit license didn't work because it was on a state level, pretty much confirming everything I had said. Well, at that point, what happens is people were paying attention to me now. They're like, he's been telling people for 4 weeks. On October 29th, I told everybody to get their money off of FTX. Everybody get their money out. You're low IQ if you leave your money on FTX. We've been warning people for weeks about this stuff. And so all of a sudden, people are listening to me and they're like, he knows what he's talking about. Well, something very magical happens, which is every person that is an enemy of SBF comes over to my side and starts giving me information. And this is how we really started catching wind of the insolvency. But our plan was, so there was a story that came out on NBCnews.com from Gretchen Morgensen, an incredible journalist who really cares. She's not bought off for sure. I can tell you that. She comes to me through a guy, Mark Cohodes. A lot of guys know he's a short seller. He's gone after a lot of people for financial fraud and stuff like that. And they come to me and we have a meeting about all this. And I'm telling them kind of what I know. We're putting a story together about the potential insolvency and all of the crimes and all of the lawsuits that are coming towards FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. We started that, I believe it would have been on about 2 weeks ago today. I think it was a Thursday night 2 weeks ago that we had that meeting. And then I leave for London 2 days later. And then while I'm in London for a few days, this happens. We've been working on the story of the insolvency for, I think, about 5 or 6 days before CZ actually pulled the trigger and caused everything to happen. So we were trying to do it in a different way, try to warn people. This is my whole thing. I wanted to do it slow and methodically so we didn't destroy the crypto space, but people still got the information and were able to get their money off. That's why I put that tweet out on October 29th. And, unfortunately, it didn't happen exactly the way we wanted it to happen. But now all the information is out, and I have so many people that message me and said we saved their life savings by getting them off of FTX. We told people to get Assolana as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's God, all the people that did lose money, it's pretty tragic for them, but it's, par for the course. You gotta, not your keys, not your coins.
Yeah, exactly. That's the message we've been driving home. I mean, look, we certainly have trading competitions we do and stuff like that. There are necessary evils of liquidity that come with centralization and centralized exchanges, especially for traders or people that are looking to, be able to just buy some spot and remove it. Our message to people has been, don't ever look at an exchange account as your bank account. It's not your bank account. You can't just leave it on there. If you're going to use something for a purpose, use it for that purpose, and then move it off to Trust Wallet or move it off to the Coinbase wallet that you have your private keys for. If you're a trader, have an amount out of your total trading amount that you're comfortable on the exchange to where if you lose it all, you won't go broke. If you have all your trading funds on one exchange at one time, you're asking for trouble. We no longer can trust any of these third-party sites. You have to use them as tools. You can't use them as bank accounts. And that's really the message we've been trying to drive home to people.
Even Gemini today going down and pausing withdrawals like that. I did not see, I didn't see the FTX saga coming either.
I was the only one that did, actually. Outside of that.
Yeah, but the Winklevoss, like they've been in this for years now. It's another big shock.
Well, I think
BlockFi too.
Of course, BlockFi connected to FTX. I think what's going on with Gemini, I think Gemini is going to be okay. The problem with Gemini right now, their site was down earlier. It's actually up right now. I think it was a traffic issue on the servers on the site. I don't think it was a withdrawal issue, but they are trying to figure out what's going on because on their Earn program, the money that they were generating on the Earn program, which goes into people's total amount that they can withdraw, the people that are using that program, it was on Genesis. And now Genesis has paused withdrawals today, and they're having major problems. It will probably be filing bankruptcy. So anything that's on the Earn side of Gemini is probably lost at this point. Look, guys, you just have to understand at this point, these Earn programs are not worth it. They're not worth it. You have to lock up too much money to earn a good return on that. Michael Saylor was the first one. He was on my channel last year, and he said, I'm not putting my money on BlockFi. That's crazy. Like, it's too much risk. And we were all like, whatever, you're so dumb, Michael. You make some money on your Bitcoin, you put it on BlockFi, blah, 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 get the returns. And we're seeing there's not an earn program out there on a centralized service that you can trust, and you're risking too much putting your assets up there. We have a Cardano staking pool, the Bit pool, people can find on bitboycrypto.com. If you want to stake on chain, totally fine. If you want to run an ETH validator node, totally fine. We know those are locked up for 6 months too, though, because of the agreement when it went to ETH 2.0. But staking on chain is okay. It's all of these third parties that you're learning. They just can't keep their hand out of the cookie jar when it comes to generating these profits. And they're always going to eventually kind of fall back and take these customer funds and do stuff with them they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. So where does DeFi fit into this? Like, is DeFi still viable? Does it have a future? And like, what does decentralization mean to you?
Well, decentralization is everything to me. I mean, of course, we use centralized platforms, and people come into my chat, and we'll have people come in that just say negative stuff or negative stuff, and we moderate it, we remove it. We certainly don't. We don't have a decentralized chat all the time. If you come in, you're just not adding anything productive, and you're just trying to be like a sheep. Sheep are called sheep because they're dumb animals. They get a parasite on their head, they'll scratch their head, but they don't have paws. So to scratch their head, they have to go scratch their head against another sheep's head, and they just keep spreading the negativity. And we don't want that, right? But in terms of decentralization on a base level, like, we're all for it. We love that because of the trustlessness and what occurs when you have these third-party sites that go kaput. It's like, man, if you would have been on chain, or if you would have been using DeFi on not a DeFi platform that has bridges that can get hacked and stuff like this, it's a good thing. And I think what we're going to see is going to come out of this, and we're going to be part of it, is a large push towards decentralization and towards DeFi. Look, all of these DeFi platforms, they're not all they're cracked up to be right now, but over time, we believe they'll get better. And look, the whole thing was SBF was trying to destroy decentralized finance. He was trying to destroy decentralization in the United States specifically with his legislation he was pushing. So lo and behold, he's been meeting with Gary Gensler and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. But look, what better commercial for DeFi than what we've just seen with CeFi, right? So Sam Bankman-Fried has done more to usher in the adoption of decentralization and decentralized finance than any human in history, in my opinion, at this point. It's what it's going to turn into. The problem with DeFi is, number one, there's a lot of hacks, and you have to be careful because of what I mentioned earlier, these bridges, a lot of these interoperable bridges, they're what gets attacked. And so, when interoperability becomes a little bit easier, those are obviously going to go down. Those attacks are going to go down, and your money won't be quite at risk. Right now, we don't have like a foolproof DeFi platform that we know for sure can never, ever, ever be hacked, and also is going to be able to have the liquidity that you need to make these trades. This has always been the problem with DeFi platforms up until Uniswap. When Uniswap came around, we actually had a place where you go trade DeFi and have liquidity. I remember in 2017, there was a coin I was trying to buy. There used to be a YouTuber. He's on whatever the version of Steam it is. I don't even know what it is now. It's gone through so many different iterations. I think Tron bought it or whatever. But 3Speak, I think, is what it's called. His name was Dan. My name is Dan, I think, was the name of his YouTube channel, actually. He was big on this project called Sigma or Spective. It was called Spective. The ticker was SIG, SIG. And me and Justin Williams, people know Justin Williams. He's the CEO of Vumio. He is does NFT Alpha. He's been friends with me. He's been in my NFT department for years and years and years. We were trading all these crazy coins back in 2017. And Dan was like, hey, here's this great coin. It's called Spective. Go buy it. And we're like, well, where do you buy it? We could only buy it on a decentralized exchange back then. It was a Fork Delta was, I think, the one we were using. You want to talk about impossible to use? It took us 6 hours to figure out how to make a trade on there. And even then, it took 24 hours for the liquidity to come in to fill our trade, which wasn't even that much. It's probably $1,500. So we didn't have big money we were trading with back then, So we've seen an evolution from then to where DeFi is now, to where there are places that do have liquidity, but they have great liquidity for spot trading. But if you're looking to leverage trade, which a lot of people in this industry don't like it, but it's a fact of life. Derivatives is the majority of money in the world. People do like to trade on leverage. We always suggest low leverage, 10x or lower. 10x is pretty high itself. but you don't want to be doing, I might trade with 25x, do as I say, not as I do, but it's dangerous. It's really dangerous.
Gosh,
100x you should never touch. 50x never touch. Some, some traders will give you some ways that you can use it. It's extremely dangerous. Like 2x, 3x, 5x. That's generally what people should be using. There's not great liquidity out there for leverage trading en masse. I think people have pointed out like DYDX is a place where, you can do some trading, some DeFi trading and do it in a way where there is some liquidity. But if all of a sudden every leverage trader overnight were to go there and start leverage trading, there would not be that level of liquidity there, right? So it's a necessary evil for trading. Centralization is right now. Over time, hopefully that changes and we get better DeFi platforms out there that can give people the liquidity to make the kind of trades they want to make.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and then as soon as you involve leverage, though, you've got the CFTC getting jurisdiction. So
right. Yeah.
That's, I guess, what pushes a lot of it overseas right now.
Well, right. And now the thing is FTX had bought LedgerX, which is a derivatives platform. They're getting ready to usher in leverage trading here in America in a regulated way. And I think CFTC is not a bad guy here. I think CFTC is actually by far and away much better than the SEC, and that people find CFTCs involved in the bill we're trying to do. And so we trust them a lot more. They're not perfect. They're a government organization. So we certainly we give them about as much trust we give a centralized exchange. But the CFTC is not all bad. And, I think in America, if we were allowed to do leverage trading and it were capped at 10x, I think that would be a smart business model. We're not going to get 100x in America. That's never going to happen. Now, there are sites you can do it on and be an American citizen right now. But once companies start coming over and getting regulated, which Gary Gensler is the number one person who's responsible for people losing money in the space because he hasn't provided the clarity to be able to get these companies to come here and get regulated and do it the right way. So if he actually did his job and gave us clarity and regulation, we might already have some people in the works trying to do some of these things in a regulated way. There are unregulated ways that you can do it right now all across the world, but it adds to the whole mystique of this problem of centralization because since they're not regulated, they don't have to play by the rules. That's exactly what FTX was doing, registered in the Bahamas.
Yeah, but so two kind of questions around what you just said. So for the CFTC, I totally thought they were the better regulator for a long time until this UkiDAO case surfaced, where
Understood.
they served the papers on a DAO, which you really need to serve those on people, not on decentralized code. It's kind of like what happened with the OFAC Tornado Cash, and then the way they were talking about they still think they have jurisdiction over this and that it needs to be a futures merchant, which requires huge capital, reserves to become registered. So it'll be prohibitive even more than registering a security. Companies will have to meet a higher standard. And I believe it's limited to the type of accredited investor rules for the commodity side of things are higher, where it's 1 million for a securities accredited investor. It's 5 million for a CFTC accredited investor, unless they go through that full registration process, which is even harder than registering with the SEC. So I don't know if they're going to be as good a regulator as we thought, back in the day when they had, they just had different people in there. Giancarlo was kind of a champion.
Well, you have some good people in there now. You have Caroline Pham is very good. She's very good. You have some of the other ones in there that are not as good. And that's generally what you see with a lot of these organizations. I mean, look at Hester Pierce, like she's good, we think. Gary Gensler is Satan himself. I mean, it's one of these things where you're going to have some negative things. As far as the UkiDAO thing goes, yes, that's a negative. I mean, that's why I say they're not perfect. There are certainly some things that they've attacked and gone after that I wish they wouldn't have done. But still, when compared to the SEC, is much different. Now, when it comes to being a platform that offers, now, are you saying that? Are you saying two different things? Or are you saying that companies that offer possible derivatives trading, that they have to have a much, much higher standard than normal, and then the traders have to be accredited as well?
Well, there's two things.
Yeah.
There's two things with it. So if they become registered as like a futures mercantile or
Yeah.
futures merchant, then the traders on it, I believe, can be regular traders. But
Right.
if they're not registered the full way, then the traders have to, it's like you can limit your trading to these sophisticated traders that have 5 million
Right.
instead of the SEC side where it's 1 million for the accredited investors.
So a couple of things. First of all, I don't see any problem with that, to be honest with you. I think we need, look, if you're going to be a leverage trading site, you need to have a much higher standard. You need to have much higher reserves. Like I think that's actually, to get leverage trading in America that's regulated, I think you have to have that. Like, you don't want some mom and pop shop derivatives trading platform popping up. So I don't see much wrong with that. As far as the accredited investing side, we actually have a bill in California, SJR 16, that it goes to, on a state level, take out the accredited investor laws. Before we got heavily involved on the federal level, what we're doing with our federal bill that hopefully is going to go in the DCCAP as an amendment, most likely, we were very, very heavily involved on the state level. So some of that stuff has kind of paused at the moment. And so what we're doing is, we were trying to change the accredited investing laws state by state. So we've got about 3 or 4 other states that we are looking at, getting into this with, including, I think, Colorado, Texas, Florida. These are all states that we're looking at. What it is, we're getting rid of the accredited investor laws. Right now, you have to have $1 million, or you have to have like basically a financial degree. If you have a financial degree, you can do it as well, which creates socioeconomic disparity because people are having to go into tons of debt to try to just become an investor who can invest in an IPO, which is insane. And of course, ICOs, future regulated ICOs by the SEC and stuff like that, you could invest in as well. But the idea is, this doesn't make sense. The socioeconomic disparity by having to go into student loan debt just to become an accredited investor, that's bad financial, that's a bad financial track right there. You're already showing that, if you're willing to go into all this debt just to become a person that trades, that's not smart investing. So that's stupid. Then you look at the means test and it's like, okay, wait. So you're telling me that somebody who is homeless, and I'm not saying all homeless people or, don't know what they're doing with finance, but most likely they've demonstrated some bad financial choices in their life. Someone who's homeless, somebody can give them $5 and they can go into their local gas station and they can buy 5 $1 scratchers. And they just happen to win $2 million on a $1 scratcher. And now because they won that, they're qualified to be an investor. That doesn't make any sense. And so what we're doing is we're making it where in California, to become an accredited investor, you would basically have to take a test. That's all it is. It's a free test given by the state demonstrating you know what you're doing with investing. You understand the risk. You understand your responsibility. You understand research. You understand your due diligence. You just have to demonstrate that, and then you can do it. Now, it's a federal law, so changing on the state level, we've got to change it, I think, in 37 states to make it a federal law. But then that's the longer term battle that we're against too. We want to change that as well. So ultimately, what you're saying with CFTC, the Ookie Dow thing, I'm not good with. Outside of that, these other things I actually think are totally fine. And what we're doing, our bill, it collides with the CFTC in a sense. And I think that what people will find is whatever the CFTC is saying now, none of that is going to matter when our amendment gets passed, because it's going to totally change everything when it comes to crypto regulation. It's going to make it where the SEC actually doesn't have, that they don't have a leg to stand on as well.
So
Which
everything would be like considered a commodity.
Well, not everything, but when it comes to the way exchanges would operate, this would actually fall under what we're doing, and as well as basically any coin that is a commodity will be moved over to the commodities. I think one thing that's really changed over the last 2 weeks is what we should consider and not consider to move over to the commodity list. Obviously, Binance Coin, CRO, FTT, these are coins that probably should not be moved over to the commodity list. When their value was inflated, and they were created by an exchange. Now, the Binance coin has utility. The CRO coin has utility. FTT had no utility. So that may play a role as well. Maybe Binance coin and CRO get in, but FTT wouldn't. We have to make sure we're building something that's going to last, so that we're not going to have like a crisis in crypto. And now all of a sudden we can say, oh, no, we made these commodities and they're not commodities. But your Cardanos, your XRPs, your Ethereums, your major coins, they should be able to move. Even Solana itself should be able to move over that commodity list.
But if they become commodities, doesn't all the existing exchange infrastructure go away? Like Coinbase can't list a commodity without being a registered,
Probably.
commodities merchant.
Yeah, probably. They probably have to do it. They have the money to do it.
Mhm.
Once again, we
But what
have
about
to
the
get,
DeFi platforms? Like Uniswap won't be able to register, and then they won't be able to hold those coins because the CFTC will just go
well,
serve them on their Telegram channel.
Bitcoin and Ethereum are already considered commodities. They have been. There's an official law going in to officially make it in place, but that hasn't affected DeFi at all. So, I'm not really sure exactly the ins and outs of how that will affect the DeFi legislation, but the idea of what we're doing is we're going to have very smart, high level crypto people, like people I look at is people that know they're talking about, like your Eric Voorhees, not your SBFs, right? That will be in charge of actually helping assist with those decisions to be able to make it where it makes sense all the way around. So I just trust that the model we put in is going to work, and that the ins and outs of exactly how the registration process when it comes to DeFi hits, it's just going to have to get worked out over time. But here's what we're not doing: we're not doing what SBF did. We're not saying, "Hey, you know what? We look down the road and see DeFi is a little murky. It's a little harder to do than CeFi. So let's just give the government everything and say no DeFi at all." Like, we're not going to do that, And I think if you look at what Eric Voorhees did with Shapeshift with his KYC and AML requirements, it's a good model, right? Like, he held out as long as he could possibly hold out till they were like, "Look, if you don't put this in, we're taking your exchange." And he was like, "Okay, I guess we'll do it. I guess we'll make customers register." Like, that's the attitude we should have in crypto, is hold out on these things as long as we can hold out. Hopefully some of the space develops a little further and we come out with maybe some out of the box, solutions to work with some of this stuff. But we got to hold out as long as possible. And that's what made the SBF thing so horrible. Not just the FTX, just what he was doing with legislation is he's trying to hand them the golden key to everything, the key to the city. You just take it, government, you handle everything. So there certainly will be issues like the one you brought up that come up. We're going to have people in charge that are able to assist with those decisions to make sure that everything's being handled in the correct way, or the most crypto way it can be handled in.
Yeah, I'm just my fear, and it started about a year ago when we saw that Biden infrastructure bill that could, even attack the Bitcoin mining network, saying that they're needing to register. My fear is that everything's going to become KYC'd, and you're not going to be able to move anything without KYC. So if all of these become deemed commodities, which I know by de facto that, by not being securities, everyone says, okay, Bitcoin and Ethereum are already commodities, but the type of commodities that are registered or that need to be, that are regulated, are the ones sold on the commodities exchanges. But anything sold on those have to, the participants have to follow the Bank Secrecy Act, and there's going to be no getting around KYC requirements as soon as things are listed on there. So if they start to reach beyond just like, say there's an exchange and we're all comfortable with centralized exchanges collecting KYC, that's the standard now when they're registered with FinCEN. Well, when they're similarly registered with the CFTC or the SEC, they have the same KYC requirements. But on the DeFi exchanges, they don't have that KYC requirement. And Eric Voorhees, he arguably didn't have that requirement either, because his stuff was self-custody. I guess the exchange, I certainly wasn't privy to any conversations, and I heard the same thing, that the regulators were really pressing on him with that. But right now we still have a line that if something is non-custodial, it doesn't need to be KYC'd.
Right.
And as soon as we move to that, the everything being on exchanges, it will, or it already does. But the DeFi stuff, I'm worried of the CFTC reaching out and saying, hey, all this DeFi stuff needs KYC too. And if it doesn't, we're going after the protocols, and anyone who votes a token on a DAO, they're personally liable for all the actions of the DAO and all the, what they'll deem as unregistered money transmission or unregistered commodities or securities sales.
Well, when you look at what we're trying to put together, which I wish I could be more specific. I wish I could just tell you. I can tell you off air. I can't tell you on air, unfortunately.
Oh, I'd love to hear about it.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely.
Fun,
I'll link it to you, Sasha, for sure. But the idea is that, let's say there is a commissioner that's very bad for crypto. and let's say that person ends up being part of this decision-making body. Well, then we get Caroline Pham on there, who we know is very pro crypto and is very interested in learning about it.
Voted in favor of the UkiDAO stuff. So she says
She's not perfect. None of them
are
perfect, right? But even if both of those people are, let's say there is something that falls along the UkiDAO thing and they both make that decision, there's still just two out of many more people that will be making that decision. So it's going to be the kind of thing where even if the CFTC feels very strongly about something, but there are other people involved in that decision, it's going to have to be a consensus to be able to make these kinds of decisions. And this is what will keep these knee-jerk reactions from happening, to where the CFTC just goes after somebody and they're able to, by themselves basically call something a security or a commodity, or this is right, this is wrong, you need to do KYC, whatever. There will be a group of people making this decision. And I feel very comfortable that overall with the number of people in this group, it would get, it basically, if it goes that way, then that's the way most people feel, and at some point, in crypto, we just kind of got to bite the bullet. Like, people don't all have our libertarian values, like if you're in crypto on some level, you got some libertarian values. Like, there's no question about it. Like, you may be very conservative or very liberal, but somewhere when it comes to money, you feel kind of on, the government needs to stay out, yada, 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 unless you're just in here to just make money and get out and, like SBF or whatever. So I just feel ultimately that there's going to be consensus on a lot of these decisions, and they're not going to be knee jerks. And that's what we're trying to prevent.
Oh, I'm excited to see what you can do. And I certainly trust you and your team, more than SBF
for sure
to get something that's
it's funny because people about 3 weeks ago, people might have told you the opposite. Oh, we trust SBF. We want what he's doing. But I don't think anybody feels that way anymore.
I just hope the privacy on non-custodial assets stays preserved. And then you did another tweet last week. Your tweets are all very exciting, but I found it really interesting when you said, "Hey, listen, Kanye, come talk crypto and fight with me."
Yeah.
Has he responded at all, or what kind of conversation would you have with him?
No, I haven't got to talk to Kanye yet, man. I'm a big Kanye fan. Like, I always like Kanye's music. I love Kanye from Through the Wire when he really hit. I watched a Kanye documentary on Netflix that came out a few months ago via Altcoin Daily suggestion. They are the ones that told me to watch that. They're big Kanye fans as well. I just like what Kanye stands for. Now, look, I'm not going to get into the remarks he made specifically about the group of people that he made the comments about. I just want to keep it. I like the idea of free speech. I like that he says what he means. It sometimes is a little cryptic. Sometimes it becomes clear a little bit down the road. I like that he's his own person, and he's not going to tell you what you want to hear. And I think we need more of that in society. And I think when it comes to what happened with JP Morgan taking his bank account, like, yeah, Kanye, look, he wore the Satoshi hat. Everybody knows about the little Satoshi hat that he wore. And, I think it'd be really good for him to really come out for this movement and to be able to make a statement about what this means. Now, obviously, when you have a multi-billion-dollar class action lawsuit going against Tom Brady and Larry David for promoting FTX, make celebrities probably second thinking a little bit. If something ever happens at CRO, Matt Damon's getting thrown into that mix, even though he just read a script on a commercial.
We saw Kim earlier this month, or maybe it was 2 months ago, but I'm sure Kanye noticed that too.
I'm sure he noticed that, right? Well, that was set up by Gary Gensler as a PR stunt. But I guarantee, I've been told her lawyers were the ones that were complicit in that. Her lawyers basically had given her advice saying what she can and cannot do. And they were very well vetted on that was something that was okay the way that she did it. And then they worked something out with Gary. I guarantee you Kim K didn't pay a dime of that fine. Her lawyers paid every single dime of that fine. So that was set up as a pure publicity stunt. Look, Gary Gensler's biggest win is Kim K. Like, let's be honest here. She's not a crypto person. She don't know anything about crypto. If this is your biggest win, what have you really done? Obviously, the LBRY, the library case, very bad. Gary Gensler didn't have anything to do with that. That was started well before he came into power, and it's been running on its own. I don't think he's had much involvement in that from what I've seen. But I mean, regardless, he's a commissioner when that win came through. So he now has that win and also the Kim K win. But of course, the library team didn't have the $100 million lawyers that the Ripple has. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on. I'd love to have Kanye on the show. I'd love to talk to him. I'd like to go hang out with him. Yeah, let's go chill. Let's go shop some Louis V.
I would love to watch that episode.
Yeah.
And now let's talk a little bit about Elon buying Twitter. What
Mhm.
are your thoughts on Elon? Do you trust him?
Well, I've said a lot of bad stuff about Elon over the last few years. I don't like what's going on with Dogecoin. I don't like the idea of at the top of the market, him tweeting about Tesla and Bitcoin and stuff. And I really blamed him for the top of the market, because a lot of people would say like the November top was probably a false top in some senses. The sentiment was definitely not the same as it was back in April when things were going peak. And then, of course, on the way down, Elon Musk tweets about Tesla and Bitcoin and the environment, which is all
Yeah.
FUD. He can't believe that stuff. They did their due diligence. He knew that ahead of time. So I had a lot of issues with him on that. I also have some issues with the way that, he's not the founder of Tesla. He didn't invent Tesla like people think that he did. He didn't. Two other guys did, and he took it from him. You could say that's business, and I'll listen to that argument now. So I've said a lot of bad stuff about him, but he's redeeming himself with Twitter. And to me, the free speech is back. And it's a beautiful thing where you feel like you can actually say what you want to say, not because you're spouting rhetoric, but because what you're saying is true. But yet previously, because the DOJ was actually involved, I think it was the DOJ, the government for sure was involved in making decisions on censorship on Twitter with the highest levels of Twitter. That is gone now. And so, which shocker, like it would make you think like, wow, there's one political party in power right now. Maybe they're trying to skew things to their side. If the government is involved in making those censorship decisions, makes you no better than the USSR. It's been so glad to get that cleared out. However, here is what I will say. If this keeps going on the way it's going, and if Donald Trump is restored on Twitter, this thing is going to possibly get removed from the App Store. That's the next step for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even. I feel silly that I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
but
don't
you're
feel too
totally
comfortable with your
right.
Twitter right
Yeah,
now.
it's
You see the model.
goodness. Yeah.
But Elon's got so much money though that it's hard to, he's a hard foe to contend with.
Yeah.
When it comes to stuff. And he definitely won't take it sitting down. And he's got such a big platform that he could literally tomorrow start his own social media and just not even do it on the App Store, and it would be mega successful. So his voice is too big to ignore now. And he's got the attention of a lot of us that are now, we may not have liked him before, but I mean, shoot, I'm starting to like him more every day.
Yeah. And I'm just loving all the medical information I'm seeing on Twitter that was, blocked for the last year. It's like, holy cow. Yeah. But I see I like the idea of paying for the check marks, or everyone paying a service. Like it moves us from, we're no longer the product on Twitter, rather than we're the customer. And I think that's a big difference. But the thing I'm worried about is if everyone has to connect their bank accounts to their Twitter accounts, it essentially KYCs everyone. And then if things do change, like it gets more restrictive or more, the whole attitude changes back to how it felt like around this time last year, where you can't say anything, or if you say something wrong, your bank account could get turned off, like we saw with the truckers. Then it's like they immediately know who you are and what bank account they can go turn off. So I think there's hopefully, there'll be some kind of integration that you can pay with Bitcoin. But I haven't seen much talk about that.
Well, Michael Saylor came up with that idea. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good idea. Look, I love this, and people know, like, I've made so many waves over the last month. It's been crazy. When I talked about how we paid $20,000 for our or $15,000 or $20,000 for our verification check mark on Twitter, the Instagram and Twitter verification game, TikTok game, it's very dirty. The people that work there would reach out to you through third parties, and look, like there was a time. Now I believe Vitalik, Elon, and CZ probably all have more imposters than I do on Twitter. There was a time where I had more imposters than any person on the planet, and there was no doubt about that. And so I'm watching my audience get screwed over and over and over again, falling for these imposters. And a guy that found my phone number somehow, called me and said he just sent me $50,000. I was like, no, bro, you did. I had a friend of mine who called me that was like, man, I got this 6K. I'm about to send it to you. Like, you good? No, bro. No, you're not talking to me. And so that's why I paid for the verification. Like people don't know how much money we pay. We pay about $7,500 to $10,000 a month every single month to prevent scams and impersonators. I have a whole team in charge of that. Like, we try to protect our people the best we can. It's not like empty, like we're just saying this. Like, we literally put money towards it. And so to see all these people on Twitter losing out because I didn't have a check mark, it pissed me off. And so when finally, after about 4 times, because you go through these people so many times, they end up refunding your money because they can't get it done. Somebody got it done for us. And so people were saying, well, you paid $20,000 for this verification mark. I paid $20,000 on Instagram, $15,000 on Twitter, or maybe it was Verse, whatever it was. It was definitely 15 or more. Am I mad? Am I mad that they're giving away for $8 now? No, that wasn't the point. The point was not for me to pay this money to get this giant return on investment. The point was to protect people. And we've seen they rolled out the check marks. Now they rolled them back again. They might be out again now. But at first, they already were having problems with impersonators, scam, trying to, get verified as larger accounts. And so as long as that gets fixed, that's what I'm for. I want it fixed. I want the bots gone. I want the imposters gone. And I think this is a great way to solve that. It's got to be done right. And so the fact that after the first day, there were already probably people getting scammed and they took it down and tried to fix it already, it shows they're committing to get it fixed. So I'm a big fan. I will gladly eat that money in order to keep people safe on Twitter. That's what we spend in 3 months anyways, on these scams and impersonators. Eventually we might be able to lower that amount if we can get things better in order.
Yeah, it would be great to fix that. I don't know if it's just native to crypto, all these scammers and impersonators, but it's really nuts. My friend Leia, she has like several different, sometimes she'll post it on her Instagram feed, like, good night, ladies. And there's like 10 different Leias out
That's
there.
funny.
Yeah. I know you're going on Fox really soon, so I want to honor your time. But thank you so much for coming on. Can you give us a little portfolio update? I think people would love to know, what are you holding right now? Or, have you made any moves to adjust for the market conditions?
Well, we removed FTT and Solana about 5 weeks ago. And we told our audience we were doing that. And I think that was a big help to a lot of people that also removed us from their portfolios. Obviously, we're not financial advisors and we're not telling you exactly what you should do, but we're glad that people followed us in that move because they came out way ahead. We got several portfolios we do on the channel. That's really what we're working on now. We're showing people a $1,000, $25,000, $10,000 portfolio, along with the ISO 20022 coins. Like, these are coins that are either considered to be ISO 20022 compliant. It's a new financial messaging standard is what it is. It launches in 2025. XRP, XLM, Slam Dunks. You got Algorand, you have XDC, you have QNT or Quant. Those are all in it. There are some kind of on the peripheral, could be. Cardano could be. HBAR could be. Casper. And there's, what's the other one? Casper and Constellation possibly falling within those standards as well. So when you really, IOTA, one that could possibly fit. So those are all in our portfolio. Those are ones we're looking at now. In general, they're the 4 coins that we are the most confident in. Oh, oops, I just hit my microphone. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Cardano. XRP, obviously some risk because the case is out there, but we believe it is going to go the way of Ripple. We think that's very clear at this point. And also Polygon, Matic. I mean, that's another one that we really, really strongly stand behind. Sandbox kind of out there. We really like Sandbox also, but I'd say those 5 are the ones that we really have a lot of confidence telling people, your portfolio won't hurt if, compared to other portfolios, if you stack around those coins.
I'm just such a boring investor. I just buy Bitcoin and that's really the only thing I hold. I actually got a little IOTA back in the day, but I've never been able to access it. I bought it and it just turned off or something when I think they lied about being with Microsoft or something back in 2017. But anyway, I have a little of that stuck on Binance, but there you go.
a little IOTA, that's redundant. A little IOTA.
Yeah. But I appreciate your time, Bitboy, and thank you so much for all the insight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good episode on Fox too. I'll be tuning in.
Thanks.
Thanks.